Hi. Sorry I forgot to record the class, so I'm going to record it for you right now again. Well, I'm going to give the class again and record it this time for the first time. All right. So today I asked the class what everyone's interests were. And I got some great answers, and I'd like to know yours too. So if you have interests that are different than these ones, then feel free to send me an email and let me know what they are, because the reason I'm asking what everyone's interests are is because, first of all, it's going to set the stage for the rest of this class, but also we have a few more months during which we'll have some photo shoots, and I want to make sure I'm able to set up photo shoots that are interesting to you. And, there's some limitations with weather and things like that, or it getting dark at 5 o'clock in a month or so. And, so we'll do our best, but if I know what everyone likes, then that will help me to make decisions that are good for you. Some of the answers I got were pet photography, horse jumping, wildlife and farm animals, nature shots, and families. So these are things that others in the class are interested in shooting. And the reason I ask is because additionally, there are many different kinds of photography out there, and I wanted to walk through with you some of what they are. Now, a lot of people I've met, they live in the world where there are a zillion photographs. If you go on Instagram, there's more photos on there than a human being could possibly count in their lifetime. If you drive down the road, there are photos on billboards. If you go to the grocery store, there are catalogs with all the sale priced goods. Every one of those photos of food was taken by a photographer who got paid to take those pictures. Stock photography websites are all those photos are taken by photographers who get paid every time those photos are used. There's just photos everywhere, and there are quite a lot of photographers, but also quite a lot of demand for photography. So I want you to pay attention this week when you're out in your life and you just see maybe the art on someone's wall that's a photo. When you're at the at a commercial building and they have art on the walls that's photography, just make a mental note that, oh, somebody probably took that picture and they sold it to this business as art, or at a restaurant, or whatever it is. Wedding photos. People get married all the time, and pretty much everybody wants photos of their weddings, and they pay photographers to take them, and so forth. So I just want to walk through with you some of the different things that you can do as a photographer. I recognize that right now many of you are just learning to use a camera, and that's the purpose of this class. But I want you to be able to look ahead a little bit and see what the possibilities are, because it can be exciting and motivating and actually help you to quickly get a direction that's a great fit for you. So here I have on my screen a photo that is an advertising photograph, and you can see it's obviously staged, and they are using direct sunlight, but they've also filled in the shadows with another light off to the side. So this is something they've set up and deliberately made with this concept in mind. They just shot a rocket out of this gun, and it's fake smoke coming out of the gun. You can tell because they didn't do a good job. And the rocket apparently has gone backwards and is coming back toward them, and they put a little curly Q in there to make it fun. And they're looking to see where the rocket went, but only this guy knows. And he's like, uh-oh. So this is a concept that's kind of fun. It's intended to make you laugh or think it's funny and keep you looking at the photo for a while, because there's a whole situation here we're looking at. Here's another example of an ad photo. It's probably for some environmental cause, maybe keeping the beach clean, because there's a child lifting up the ocean and seeing that underneath there's all this garbage. It says just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. So they're trying to communicate something. Now with ad photography, the high priorities are for the photo to read quickly. When you look at it, you immediately know what it's trying to say. It's saying something very specific, and it was completely set up and created specifically to deliver that message, and or product in some cases. So anyway, the kid wasn't even really there. The shadows are fake. They're creating this photo out of probably some stock photography, or they took a picture of their own kid and tried to put it in there. But it's all set up and created with the concept first in mind. And that's really what people are going for in ad photography, because they're trying to sell something. This is architectural photography, which is where someone has designed and built a building, or a company or city has commissioned a building, and they want photos taken of it. Sometimes it's because they want to sell the property and they want to make it attractive to buyers. Sometimes it's because they're proud of the work that they have and it's a portfolio piece. They're hoping the next client will see this and hire them, the next city or corporation or whoever it is. Or it could be fine art. Some people just like having stuff like this in their home on the wall. So anyway, architectural photography is a lot of fun. You're basically taking someone else's art, which is the architecture, the original architecture, and you're looking for arrangements and parts of it that they may not have realized that they were creating. For example, if I were to zoom way in here and take a picture just of this intersection with all of these star-like lines coming out of it, I'm seeing a shape within a shape, and maybe the architect didn't think about that when they made it, but now I'm here, the light's just so, and I'm creating new art out of existing art. So it's a pretty fun discipline. This is fashion photography. The purpose of fashion photography ostensibly is to sell clothes. Photography like this is doing the job where it's just somebody wearing the clothes and you get to see the clothes and you're like, okay, I like those colors and that pattern and it seems to fit well, and maybe you want to buy it. This is an older one, maybe from the 60s, or maybe it's a modern photo made to look like the 60s. And it's in a different style, in black and white and so on. But fashion photography also extends to just sort of shooting models and trying to create this allure or something. And there's also some really far out stuff where they're doing big, hair and crazy makeup, and they just go bananas with it. So there's really quite a lot within fashion photography if that's your interest, and there's a lot that you can explore there as well. This is fine art photography. In fine art photography, it's kind of the opposite of ad photography, where in ad photography, we had something in mind, we wanted to communicate it, we want to make someone feel something, or we want them to think a certain thing, and so we're going to construct this image with that goal in mind. Now, in fine art photography, it's more typical for the photographer to simply look for interest. They're shooting something that's interesting to them, is usually beautiful, but not always, and is mostly based on design. They're just trying to create good design. And there's not a specific message, and the interpretation of the image is largely left up to the viewer of the photo. So for example, with this zebra, what's the point of this photo? I don't know, but it's pretty. There's a flowing design line here that goes up into the neck and leads me back around, almost like a Fibonacci square. And then, I've got this eye that kind of is where my eyes and my attention ends up. And then you've got the black and the white photo with a black and white zebra. And so they're kind of playing off all these different design elements to create an aesthetic that's interesting. And, you might print this and put it on your wall because it's just generally appealing. So that's more the direction of fine art photography, similar to this, where there's not really a message. I don't know why this lady could be floating. She could be flying sideways. I don't know. Maybe she just fell from the sky like that. She's about to land. Who knows? It's just up to me to interpret the photo and to try to understand it my way. Whereas the photographer probably just thought, well, this is an attractive person doing an attractive sort of ballet-esque thing in an attractive landscape, and because it's black and white, she's popping out from the background. And so these are all just design considerations, which are primary to any kind of concept. Landscape photography is fantastic because you get to go to a lot of beautiful places. I've done a lot of this with a company I shot for called Lifetime, where I sold kayaks. I photographed kayaks. And we'd have to go to all the most beautiful lakes all around Utah and around the country. I got to go to Louisiana with crocodiles or alligators all in the swamp and everything, or I got to go to Florida at the beach. Lots of cool stuff. California. There are some really beautiful places in America and around the world. And if you're a landscape photographer, you get to go and be in them. You get to take your backpack and your hiking boots, go camp in the woods, and you just wait for the right lighting. You just wait for the sun to get right where you want it. So you have sunbeams coming down, and you have all these layers of mountains all pointing to the center, cascading off to the right. And then in the foreground, we just have our trees, and there's one little island right in the middle. You know, you're still using design, and you're still going for aesthetics, but here, you know, this is very close to fine art photography, where those are the primary considerations. But the difference is that we're looking at nature. We're looking at sort of the paintings that God created, and we're just going and capturing them with our camera. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, a lot of peace if you're somebody that likes to be alone, or if you have a best friend or a spouse that, you know, this is something you share, is the love of the outdoors, and this can be a really great one for you. Same here. And this teeny photo is an example of photojournalism. The photojournalism is very distinct in that in photojournalism you don't set anything up. You don't, and it's not like landscape photography where you can just sit in the same spot for like 2 hours and just get all your settings right, and you can do long exposures and just try to make everything as pretty as possible and composite the sky back in because your camera can't handle the brightness of the sky. In photojournalism, you are only allowed to shoot what was really there. You can't composite skies in. You can't put UFOs in the sky. You can't darken it so much that a certain person is no longer visible. You have to, the only changes you're allowed to make are ones that you could have made with the camera prior to shooting. So, for example, I can make it black and white if I want to. But the purpose of the photograph is not beauty, it's story. So photojournalists are going to go where stories are. They're going to try to find events that are happening. They're going to try and find disasters, or they're going to find like an avalanche taking place or something that's already happening, and they're just going and documenting it. And the primary skill of the photojournalist is being in the right place at the right time and capturing the image in a way that tells the story the best. So for example here, they could have shot it much wider, but then the lady and the soldiers would have been much smaller, and the flower might not have been discernible. So it was important to get close enough that we can see that there's soldiers and there's knives and how close it is to her, and then see that she's holding a flower, which creates this story of contrast between these people and her, and she's protesting sort of with this loving approach, whereas they're threatening with weapons. So this is a story, and it's an event that really happened. This wasn't set up. And so, you know, that's kind of how photojournalism is. So if you're somebody that doesn't really care about setting up a scene and lighting it and doing Photoshop work and all this kind of stuff, then photojournalism is a good fit, because it's all about being in the right place at the right time, capturing the height of the action in a way that tells the story with as few images as possible. Because if you put that in a magazine or in a newspaper, those are the things that are going to keep readers interested and get them to read the words that surround the photo. Here's another example. This is Tiananmen Square, man. Anyway, they're driving tanks down the street, and he's just standing in the front of the tanks. So this is like a iconic image that was taken that represents bravery and standing up for your rights. But this wasn't set up. This is just somebody captured it from far away, and it's a perfect encapsulation of a certain concept. So we have portraiture, where we're capturing human faces, usually, or animals. And there's a wide variety of different kinds of portraiture. So in this photo, you can see that it's very clean. The light is very deliberate. It's flattering. You know, they captured her with an expression that they probably told her to do, and she probably is very familiar with as someone who's been in pictures for a long time. And it's designed to make her look as good as she possibly can. There are other kinds of portraiture which are gritty and grimy. Some people really like really raw and realistic or even ugly portraiture because they feel like it's there's too much out there that's fake or pristine, and they're just like, well, the world's not really like that. I want something that's more raw and rugged, and so they'll enhance the blemishes or use lighting that's not so flattering and so forth. There's just a wide variety of different approaches you can take. There's environmental portraiture, which is where you shoot people in their natural environment instead of on a white background like this. So if you're taking pictures of a portrait, like a landscape painter, then you can go to their home studio with all of their art supplies all over the place and their canvas behind them, and you could do a portrait of them in their own environment, and you could do it all the way from head all the way to toe. It's still a portrait, it's just a different approach. So there's many different ways that you can do portraiture. And this is product photography, where they needed a picture of a shoe. And so in product photography, there is, similar to ad photography, there's a certain goal in mind, but instead of it being a idea or a concept or brand communication, in product photography, your primary goal is to represent the product in a way that is both accurate and informational and makes it look desirable. So if you look at this shoe, for example, you can see texture on the front of the shoe, so you know what material that is. You can see texture on this little patch right here, so you can tell that's a different material. You can see the color accurately. It's all very, perfectly balanced, so that the colors are very accurate. And then it's lit in a way that makes it sort of attractive and appealing. Like, this is a men's shoe, and it's shot with masculine lighting where there's very dark darks here and here, but also, it's rim lit here and then front lit here. And so it just looks cool, and then they put this CGI background back here to make it look even more interesting. And then here's a product that is more feminine. It's perfume, and they have chosen soft lighting instead of harsh lighting. And they're using flowers, and they're using a color scheme that is monochromatic. So it's all peaches and pinks, all very similar to the product itself. There's not like a blue in here or something totally opposite. And it feels very nice and just lovely. Now this is AI generated, actually. But this is all work that you could do with a camera, and that's where AI got the idea, is because it's been done and it really looks like this. So anyway, there's different approaches to product photography as well, depending on you and on what product you're promoting. All right, here is a photojournalist, but this is a different kind of photojournalist. This is a man who takes pictures of football games, it looks like. This is sports photography, and it's similar to photojournalism in that you generally do not alter the photos in a significant way after you take them. And of course you're in the right place at the right time, but in this version of that idea, it may just be which part of the field are you kneeling on, how far up or down the field are you during what part of the action. And then the difference too is that sports are a high action subject. If you're taking pictures of a political speech, you need a picture of the speaker speaking, but the highest action is trying to get a picture of them saying words without their, with their mouth in a way that doesn't make them look silly. You're trying to get a good picture that shows them talking, but that they look good. Pretty easy. But when you're taking pictures of, 30 football players out running around smashing into each other and doing backflips over each other and stuff for touchdowns, it's very fast paced. And so these photojournalists are very skilled at hitting, a situation at the height of the action. They will use their rapid fire shutter button. They'll just hold it down and take like 30 photos in a row, like really fast. And that's because at least one of those photos is going to have that best moment in it. And because there are dozens of photographers at these events, each one of these photographers needs to be the first one to get their photos live online for purchase. Because when this football game's over, let's say at the Super Bowl, it's the Super Bowl, there's going to be 100, media companies that are going to try and report on the results of the Super Bowl, and they're going to want photos in their articles. And so if you have your photos up first online, when those companies who are all competing to be first with their articles, they'll see your photo, and it's possible that they will hire your photo, and you get paid when they use your photo. So while this guy's shooting, he will transmit his photos or deliver them by hand to somebody that's up in another room at the stadium, and they will immediately start editing them while he's shooting the next quarter of the game. So they have this incredible system to get these photos shot, edited, and online in just a very short period of time. It's really impressive. So these are very highly skilled people. They're not pre-composing their images. They're not doing a lot of retouching. They're not lighting their photos. So it's a very different thing from product or advertising, but it can be a lot of fun, especially if you love sports. And here's another example where they're using a really fast shutter speed, maybe 1/2000th of a second, to make sure that there is no blur on that lady jumping over that pole. And the background is blurry because the aperture that they're using is like f2.8. It's very wide aperture, the small number wide aperture, and that makes the background blurry, especially when you're shooting with a long telephoto lens like that big white one that guy has right here. And there's a football example. Okay, so there are more kinds of photography than this. Someone mentioned wedding photography. That's another, family photography. There are many different kinds of photography. The point is that I want you to be aware of what's out there and pay attention when you're reading articles online, or you're driving down the road, you see billboards or whatever it is. Pay attention to those photos and where they came from. Someone got paid for those. And I'm telling you this not because you all need to be professionals. I don't think it's important to be a professional photographer. There's many, many good endeavors in life you can pursue. And just learning about photography or doing it for a hobby is perfectly worthwhile, and it's not about the money. I just want you to be aware that each photo you see represents somebody that's out there taking pictures and making those available to others to use. All right, now on to the good part. I mean, that was a good part. When I was in college, I started out as a drawer and a painter. I wanted to be an artist, and so I spent a lot of time drawing, and I got to where I could do a pretty good job. I should have worked harder and done my sketches. So if your teachers ever tell you need to practice and do your sketches, do them, because they're right. But along the way, I got concerned. I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a living as someone who draws pictures. Because I was young. I didn't really know how the world worked or anything. And I thought, well, who hires those people? And so I thought that photography would make more sense because all these companies and all these people pay for photography. And so I started to pursue it, and I'd done it for fun, and I'd done it in high school and things, so I kind of knew how to do it, and I had a knack. And so I decided that's what I was going to go for, and I practiced and practiced and practiced, and I shot a lot. After school, on weekends, when I didn't have assignments, I just wanted to learn, so I just taught myself. I watched videos or whatever. And I had a class with a guy named Ed, who is a fantastic photographer. He directs TV commercials now, and he's big stuff. But he took time out to be a one-on-one teacher for me in that college, and one of the things he had me do to figure out what kind of work I wanted to do was he had me sit down and he asked me questions like, what kind of photography do you like? Just like I asked the class today, what kind of photography do you like doing? And I had my portfolio, so he already had a good idea. And he said, okay, I want you to go home and look up 5 photographers who do the kind of work that you want to do, and find 5 photographers that their work inspires you. It makes you feel excited to learn and to do it. And then I want you to write down for each of them 5 words that describe their work. And so I did that, and then I came back, and he helped me to understand that when I laid those 5 out, it became clear that there were certain words that were present in all of the photographers that I chose. And he explained that those words, those represent what could be your style. And that really helped me to have direction. I thought, oh, okay, because it's really tough. Like when you learn photography, if you can take a great picture of a cute puppy, you can probably also take a great picture of a landscape. And if you can take pictures of both of those things really well, you can probably take a nice picture of a car, because there's a kind of photography called automotive photography. And you'll find that as you get better at photography, you realize you're kind of good at all of the different kinds of photography to some degree. And then it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I like shooting all these things. How are people supposed to know when they hire me what they're going to get? Because I shoot a zillion things. Or how do I know what kind I really love and what kind I just do because I'm kind of good at it, even though it's not really my thing? And so this exercise he had me do really helped me to narrow down my direction. Now I'm going to have you do this. And I'm going to have you do this not because I think you need to hurry up and be a pro or decide while you're learning how to use a camera what kind of photographer you are already. That's not important. But it will be important later, and even if you're not a photographer. So this will be a fantastic exercise. Imagine that you're going to college after you graduate from high school, or even in high school, you're trying to decide what kind of things you want to learn about for a career. You know, maybe photography is a hobby for you and you want to be an engineer or a nurse or something else. How do you make that decision? You know, what if you get there and you're like, you know what, I'm a smart homeschool kid, and my parents have raised me to believe that I am a capable person who can probably do just about anything I want for a living. Well, what do I do? What do I choose? You know, should I be a zookeeper? A garbage man? Should I be a rocket scientist? The President of the United States? What should I do? Well, if you have done this before and you've taken, ask yourself these questions and you do this little assignment I have for you, that's going to be a much easier process. You'll be like, okay, well, I did this for photography. Let's see. Who are the people that inspire me? Who are people that I've seen doing their work that just blew my mind and made me think, holy cow, I want to do that so bad. And then you can look them up and you can look at their work and what they've done, and then you can describe what their work is. And then you can see what the common threads are. What are the things that excite me? What are the things I value? Not only will this help you make these decisions, but it'll help you to know yourself and what's important to you. I'll give you an example. So I'll show you sort of my little journey in this assignment. So let's see. So I'll show you some of the photographers that I looked up. One is Eric Almas. I had seen this guy's work. Let's see, these are not good examples. Here, I'll just click out of here and find one. Yeah, so like this one. So he's done a lot of work like this, which is like beautiful, painterly, idealistic. It's deliberate and painterly, surreal. So these are words that I use to describe Eric Almas. And if you look through his work, it all has this sort of, it just really looks like art. So I really like that. So I'll show you another one if I can find, what did I do? Oh, here we go. This is Tim Tatter. Now, Tim Tatter doesn't have that painterly look. He doesn't have that high art look. He has intensity and height of action. He uses color. He's got his photos are very deliberate and very well lit and planned. So these are different characteristics of his photography, but his work really impressed me and inspired me back then. So then, if you look at Chris Chrisman, this is another guy that I just thought was the tippity top back then. And he also has a painterly soft. He has a much softer look than any of the other two, but it's still painterly and surreal. There's something about it that made me go, how do they do that? I can't even figure. I can't imagine how you would get that look with a camera. It looks like art, you know. And so I was always just really impressed with Chris Chrisman's work. And I also knew that these guys were getting hired a lot. You know, these are very successful people. I admired that, and I thought, I want to make a living doing this someday, but I want to make work I'm proud of that's beautiful. And then there's John Keatley. And John Keatley has some of that painterly quality. He has, but there's something about his work that's funny. You know, he's got like this sort of silliness about his work that really appeals to me. And, I like that idea that we're not taking ourselves too seriously. Because I was in college, and there's so many photographers in college that are like, I am an artist, and I'm not going to sell out and do work for companies because this is my art. You know, they're very self-serious, and I didn't like that. I was like, you know what? I just want to have a good time. One of the basic values that I have is finding work that I love doing. As a kid, I remember my dad was he showed me some cartoons that he used to draw when he was young. And he told me he wanted to be a cartoonist, but then he met someone that was better than he was at drawing cartoons, and he got discouraged. And then he got married and had kids, and he knew he needed to make money, so he became an accountant. And I remember growing up, and he was a good accountant, and I think he made a good decision. He took good care of us, but I remember him coming home and telling my mom all about how stressed out he was and frustrated every day about his work. And I always just thought, I think that's sad. He was a good cartoonist. He could have done it. He just needed to do his sketches, do his practice. He could have done it. But I wanted to be somebody that did that thing. I wanted to give that a try first, because I always felt like I could be an accountant if I wanted to. But why not try something interesting first, right? So in college, when people were like, I'm very serious and everything, I thought, well, that's the opposite of what I care about. I want to have fun. I want to make stuff that I think is fun to make. And so when I saw John Keatley's work, this is weird, right? That's funny. Why did you take that picture? A wrestling guy, or this is him right here and his family. So he does these family photos, and they just have a fun time. Doesn't look like the kids have fun, but he probably told them not to smile. So, but anyway, it just has a lot of personality, and it's just fun. So as I go through these and I compare them, there's another guy named Dean Bradshaw who was my fifth, but his work has totally changed since then, so it's not really a good example anymore. But there's certain words that I use to describe these things, these works, and by describing them, I kind of was able to identify what I like, what about these inspired me. And because I discovered that, I was able to, I'll show you some of my college pictures. I still have them on my website because college wasn't, that long ago, just like 11 years since I graduated. Let's see if I can find any. So here's one. Not good. It's not good when you have a website and you click on it and it doesn't work. Anyway, here's one I made in college. So I had a connection with a cousin who is a pilot or something. I don't know. Anyway, I was invited to go to this Ogden airport and take pictures here. And I wanted to try to use these lights, use my lights to try to create a feeling that was similar to what I had seen in those people I admire. And I used my retouching ability to get all the bugs off the airplane, and I balanced everything, and I should have darkened the ground a little more right here, but you live and you learn. But I was able to create this feeling that was that painterly, that like full and deliberate look that I was looking for, and I just tried to develop that and try to take it to the next level. And so this is on Antelope Island, and I got kicked out of Antelope Island during this shoot because we weren't supposed to be off the trail, but I got this photo, so who cares? But again, that painterly look, I was getting there, and now looking at it, I'm like, okay, the light was a little harsh on her face. I should have used a soft light, and that would have done it better. But, it was the right idea. I was creating stuff that felt like, those other guys. And here's what I made for Lifetime when I was working there, where, he's got all of this stuff, and we sold tables. And so the idea was like, don't you wish you had a table, And I had to pin all these things together with skewers to make it all stick. Let's see what else. Yeah, anyway, this one I can't click on because it won't show up. Oh, there we go. So I spent 2 hours drawing this with sidewalk chalk. I really drew it. And I had this idea in my head before any of this started, and I went in, and these are my sister's kids, and I changed the color of her house and fixed her grass because it wasn't looking too good. This plant's totally dead, so I made it green. There's all these wires hanging down, so I used what I knew to get this looking the way that I wanted. And the idea was that they're playing in this pool that they drew with sidewalk chalk, and you can see that it's wet right here because I actually got them wet, and I actually had them walk and get some water on the ground, and I was trying to do what I had seen these other guys do. So anyway, you can see since then my work has taken a little bit more, taken that a little bit further. And this is college. And now I don't always light everything. Some of these pictures, these are shot without any lights, like this or this one. There's no lights. I just use the natural light. But because I knew, what I was looking for, I was able to start to pull that painterly look without using artificial light. So anyway, I started to develop a style, and I've been able to sort of barely survive as a photographer using the style that I was able to sort of develop. So this is what I want you to do. And, like I said, this can help you with, this is a great exercise for introspection, which is difficult for children or, young children or teenagers, especially, as you get older, it becomes more normal and more, comfortable to start to think inside yourself a little bit. But it's important to start as early as you can and just figure out, what am I all about? What do I care about? What makes me tick? What do I get excited about? What are the things that I value? And if you haven't given that a lot of thought, this is a great opportunity to start. So you can say confidently what matters, and you can pursue those things. Because you can waste a lot of time in life doing random stuff. Whereas if you are deliberate and you know exactly what you want and you can start working on it, you're more likely to get there while you still have the free time afforded to young people that people like me don't have. Okay, so here's the assignment, and I'm going to write this out for you in an email after this call. That's not a call. After this, whatever this is, class. And what it is I want you to First of all, ask yourself, what am I interested in? Why am I in this class? Is there a certain kind of photography I like? Is there any that I've seen that has just been so exciting and made me want to go out and take a picture right now? Or is there a certain kind of photography like the ones I listed before, like horse jumping or, whatever it is, photography that you want to try? And then, once you know what that is, look up with the help of a parent if needed, because, I don't want to be responsible for what you accidentally Google. Look up photographers who do that kind of photography. So if it's horse jumping photography, look up horse jumping photography and see what has been done. What does it look like? Find 5 photographers whose work impresses you, inspires you, or you look at it and you're like, wow, how do they do that? And then go through their work individually for each one of them and write 5 words that describe their work. And then you'll have this big list. You'll have a list of 5 photographers, and each photographer will have 5 words that describe their work. And then you can look at those words you use to describe their work, or what you like about their work, I should say. And then see if there are any common threads, words that go through all of them. And then you can also look at the words that are different between them. And like I did, where I was like, well, John Keatley's funny and silly, and I really like that, but none of the others were. And then Tim Tatter has a lot of action and intensity. And Chris Crispin has this painterly look that looks so soft. And then Eric Almas's looks like this beautiful art. Okay, well, maybe my style is beautiful art, sometimes funny, or has personality, is painterly and beautiful, idealistic, intense, with color. So those have started to be sort of the things that defined my ideas. So rather than being like, okay, well, I like super high production. I like it to be as, pinnacle of human capability. That's what I'm shooting for. I want it to be super refined. That's what I like. And so when I'm deciding what photography to do, should I be a photojournalist if that's what I value? Is this work that a photojournalist will make? No. So maybe photojournalism isn't for me. Maybe shooting football games is not going to do it for me quite the way that going on a scene with specific people, specific subject matter, with a plan in advance, with a beautiful location, with lighting, and doing everything I can in post-production and everywhere to make everything just so. That's what I love. And the photography that requires that is ad photography and lifestyle photography. And that's what I like. So that's what I'm doing, and I love it. So I've been able to find the thing that matches up with what I care about, and that's what I want you to do. And again, if nothing else, it'll give you a chance to look inside yourself and say, what are the things that I value? Am I someone that likes grungy, raw stuff that's like really harsh and kind of gritty? Am I somebody that likes action and adventure? Do I like to be alone and just go in the woods and just wander around and just think? Think about what you like, and that's going to help you to identify some direction in your life, not just in your photography. All right. So that's on and on and on. The actual class was a little bit longer because I spent time asking questions to the students. So we're going to end this a little bit early. But I want you to know that you've got some instructions and details coming your way. And I also want you to know that what we're involved in here is something great. Photography is a fantastic medium for expressing your creativity and for learning about yourself and figuring out what matters. And so in addition to figuring out your camera, I want you to do a little figuring out yourself too. All right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being in my class. I hope that you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And I'll talk to you next week at the same time, 7 o'clock, same link. See you then. Bye-bye.